What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six podcast. Katie Mox and Will Brinson here. And as you know by now, this is our All 32 series, the series where we catch you up with insiders, give you all the need to know information for every single NFL team. And today we are talking the Indianapolis Colts with lead analyst for Horseshoe Huddle on Fan Nation, as well as co-host of Locked On Colts, Zack Hicks. Zack, thank you so much for joining us today with your Art Deco soundproof wall.
I appreciate the Art Deco every time you say that, because again, it's much better than hearing a bathroom tile or whatever other people want to say with it. We're going to go Art Deco soundproofing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, my wife's going to love that. She's going to love hearing that.
Look, hey, as long as the sound quality is good, who cares what it looks like in the background? I had a fake baby grand piano for a while, just so people didn't see my blank wall. But speaking of art, I feel like Jim Irsay could have an Art Deco tile set up in his house, right? And Jim Irsay is apparently running things in Indianapolis.
Well, and Will Brinson is apparently not running things here on the Big Six podcast. I'm sure we'll get it back very, very soon. But let's just start with the quarterback, right? Anthony Richardson. What do you think is the possibility that he will be starting week one?
I think the plan is to start him week one. I think that's what the Colts want to happen. Obviously, Jim Irsay was on the Pat McAfee show the other day, and it was kind of saying, the best way you learn is by playing. And that's kind of been what the Colts have been operating like since they drafted Anthony Richardson. They don't really buy into what some of the pre-draft crazy people were saying, that he's a 4-year project or a 5-year project or anything like that. Like, Anthony Richardson, yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and maybe he's not ready to go in week one. But I do think that they are prepared for any kind of scenario with that. They want him to go week one. They want to get him out there. And I think they're going to have a game plan ready if he shows improvement throughout camp. But so far, as of right now, in the couple practices and in off-season stuff we've had with him, it's kind of been what you saw at Florida. The big arm, really great high-end flashy plays. But there have been some inconsistencies with his accuracy, especially in the short to intermediate game. So who knows? We got to see how this offseason goes. But I would say percentage-wise, I'd probably put it at 50% right now, just because you got to see some growth first. But I do know that they really want to, get him out there as early as possible and get him some playing field experience. So, the best way he's going to learn is on the field. He didn't really get too much field work in college, so they're going to want to get him out there as soon as possible.
Yeah, of course. Well, he's the number one jersey sale of all of the rookies this year. So you could tell how thirsty Colts fans are for a franchise quarterback. And following up on that a little bit, we saw what Shane Steichen did with Jalen Hurts. And you have someone with Anthony Richardson, who is more of that dual threat quarterback. What can we expect from a Shane Steichen offense in year one with a quarterback like Richardson?
Yeah, I think the best thing about a Shane Steichen and why this hire was so great for the eventual drafting of an Anthony Richardson is Shane Steichen is one of those chameleon type play callers and one of those chameleon type of coordinators where he will adjust his offense to whatever fits that quarterback. Now, he is a Norv Turner guy. He comes from a Norv Turner type tree, so he wants to attack the ball down the field. Like we saw with Justin Herbert, obviously, in that one season that he worked with Justin Herbert as a rookie. But before that, he worked with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was a kind of quarterback who could attack down the field, but could also pepper the short game and get the ball out as quick as possible, kind of get those Ken Whisenhunt run after the catch type things underneath. And then we saw with Jalen Hurts, he completely adapted into catering that offense to a rushing quarterback. 2021 was his first time working with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, where the running aspect from that quarterback position is such a big thing. And it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but they kind of were able to put together a decent enough offense to make the playoffs that year. And then we saw in year two with those two working together, Jalen Hurts and Shane Steichen, where it really took off. It really exploded. And Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate for much of the season. So I think when you look at what he's going to do with Anthony Richardson, you can obviously look at a lot of that Jalen Hurts stuff and say like, okay, yeah, he can take some of the read option stuff, some of the quarterback power stuff from that. He can take some of the downfield shots and some of the empty set personnels to make things easier for Anthony Richardson. But also at the end of the day, it's going to be Shane Steichen sitting in the film room with Anthony Richardson saying, hey, what do you like in these situations? Hey, what do you want to do here? What do you want to do here? And again, it kind of goes to that who knows thing where the offense could look like it could look like Phillip Rivers, and Anthony Richardson just never runs. I'd be shocked.
I'm going to go on a limb and say that Richardson does not look like Phillip Rivers. You're not crazy, but I'm going to like Anthony Richardson would accidentally run more than Phillip Rivers.
Right. I'm not saying exactly how it's going to go. I'm just saying whatever Richardson says he likes and what Steichen says, okay, I can do that for you. That's going to be kind of the path they go with this position. So yes, I think the easy answer is, hey, look at what they did with Jalen Hurts and then say, okay, there we go, Jalen Hurts, and just put Anthony Richardson in that style of offense. But it's going to be what's comfortable for Anthony Richardson. A big thing I've looked at throughout this whole offseason is, empty personnel. What the Eagles were doing with empty personnel last year, they're running it more than any other team in the league. But that's because Jalen Hurts liked that. And while that could be a beneficial thing for an Anthony Richardson, if Richardson doesn't like empty personnel, they're not just going to force him into it. They're going to work with him. They're going to see how it goes. So it's going to be a very adaptable offense. It's going to be whatever they find works best for this young quarterback. And to take kind of a little bit of what I've learned over my years of covering the NFL, once a good play caller figures out that quarterback, that's when things really take off. But until then, it can be a little ugly. It can be a little crazy. I remember famously with Frank Reich with Nick Foles back in their Super Bowl season. He was like, he couldn't figure him out for the longest time. And then right before they got to that NFC Championship game, they figured out what Nick Foles could do, and it led to two of the best games that we've seen in playoff history. So, I think it's going to really come down to what Anthony Richardson likes to do.
Speaking of Nick Foles in that Super Bowl, I actually saw Phillip Rivers catch a touchdown pass in college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he caught
a big Phillip Rivers guy.
Yeah, he caught a touchdown pass against Carolina in Chapel Hill. We were in the end zone, like we blew him out. We were losing our minds. I digress, but yeah, I think the Frank Reich thing is really interesting because it's like, all these dudes kind of come from this same line of it's I don't know, it almost reminds me a little bit of what the Eagles did when they like fired Andy Reid and brought in Doug Peterson, right? And it's like, how much of an impact do you think Shane Steichen could have on this offensive line? Because it was a top 5 unit year in and year out under Reich, and Quentin Nelson, the anchor there, his plays dropped a little bit. How important is that for this team, and just how much? Like, what do you think we'll see from that offense in terms of trying to get the most out of the offensive line, get it back to where it was?
Yeah, I mean, flashback to last season, one of the biggest miscalculations going into last year, among many miscalculations with that team. One of the biggest ones was the over-reliance on Matt Pryor at left tackle and Danny Pinter at right guard going into the season. I mean, their backup plans for those guys were a rookie Bernard Ryman who wasn't ready, and then a former 7th-round pick in Will Fries. Those were their only backups to those two guys. So they were putting all their eggs in the Matt Pryor and Danny Pinter basket. And then through the first 4 to 5 weeks, it was clear that those two could not start anymore. Danny Pinter was getting driven back into the backfield on every single play. Matt Pryor could not block me off the edge, which is saying something because I'm not very quick or agile. So Matt Pryor was really struggling there at left tackle. So it just kind of led to this disaster of a season for the offensive line. And you even saw the 3-star players, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Brayton Smith, their play started tapering off because of that, because they lost confidence, they lost health, they started getting injured a little bit. Like it all kind of just snowballed into this horrible, horrible season for the offensive line. And in a way, they're kind of running back the same concerns. Like, don't get me wrong, when they made the change to Will Fries and Bernard Ryman late last season, by week 16, 17, and 18, those two were playing pretty well. Like, they were playing fine, and the Colts offensive line looked the best they had the entire season. But now we're going into this next year where you got an unproven Bernard Ryman, who, again, improved, but still an unproven guy, an unproven Will Fries, and not really any competition behind those guys at those two positions. So it's kind of a risky business. They're trying to play with fire a little bit here by running back the same issues they had last offseason going into the year. But again, when you look at this unit, it all comes down to those 3-star players playing up to their ability and those other two guys just being capable enough. If Bernard Ryman and Will Fries can be better than what Danny Pinter and Matt Pryor were early last year, then you got to hope that those star players can keep their continuity, keep their chemistry, keep their health, keep their confidence, and lead to a more successful season. But I do think it's concerning what could happen with this offensive line this year. And again, hopefully having a play caller like Shane Steichen and a quarterback like Anthony Richardson can kind of mitigate some of the rush concerns, because with Matt Ryan, if a pass rusher or just a defensive player gets into the backfield, it's a sack. Like if they get one step in the backfield, Matt Ryan's doing the old Eli Manning and falling down and taking the sack. Where Anthony Richardson, we saw in college, he could break out of any of these pass rushes. He could turn what looked like a 10-yard loss into a 70-yard touchdown run down the sideline. That's a huge impact for an offensive line. And it also kind of gains that confidence. If every time you make a mistake, you're allowing a sack, your confidence starts to drop. But if you make mistakes every now and then the quarterback's still able to make a great play out of it or able to, save the drive still, that adds to your confidence and makes us feel like, okay, cool, I can bounce back from this. So I do think Steichen and Richardson are a big part of this equation and helping those guys bounce back. But the Colts are playing with fire a little bit and hoping Will Fries and Bernard Ryman could be better than what Matt Pryor and Danny Pinter were last year.
You got your say as your owner. You're always playing with fire as far as I am concerned. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, Jonathan Taylor, comeback year for him. He's got the second shortest odds for the most rushing yards this season. You're watching Pick Six, and we'll be right back. All right, Zach, let's talk about JT here. How do you think he's going to do this season, coming off of an injury, having a very disappointing season in 2021? I personally put, a lot of money on him last year and was disappointed and broke after last season. However, the vibes are high right now. Our guy Lige was talking about him the other day. I saw on social, you had responded to it. And especially with a quarterback like Richardson, is this a good year for Jonathan Taylor? He's plus 750, second shortest odds to have the most regular season rushing yards. Good bet.
Yeah, I think it's a fine bet. Like, I'm not a huge betting guy, so I don't even know the intricacies of it. So
get him out of here.
Yeah, when I hear the second fewest odds, I'm like, okay, maybe that's not the bet you make. Then bet on a long shot, put $1 down on some long shot, and hope it breaks out. But when I think about Jonathan Taylor, there's kind of two parts of this that kind of go into my head. It's one, running backs are terrifying. Running backs are terrifying this day and age because the second they start getting that first injury, because this is the first time Jonathan Taylor has ever missed a game in his entire football career, not just in the NFL, not just in college and all that,
Pee-wee.
all the way down to Pee Wee. Never missed a game before this past season, and it kind of saw it, all that stuff kind of stacking up, and it's terrifying with running backs because once that first injury comes, you don't know when the second one is, and then if there's a surgery, you don't know if that surgery is going to be bad. So yeah, running backs are terrifying when it comes to that. But on the other end, if Anthony Richardson is the week 1 starter, there's going to be so much space for him to work with. It's going to be the most space he's ever had, probably in his entire football career as well. Going back to Wisconsin, they're running power eye. They're running just fullback and just dive up the middle, and hopefully you can break through. And then obviously with Phillip Rivers and with Carson Wentz and with Matt Ryan, you don't have a quarterback that's going to really take the pressure off you. But with Anthony Richardson, every handoff becomes a read option.
Yep.
Every time he's putting that ball forward and giving it to the running back, that backside defense end can't crash down because you have to watch Anthony Richardson. You have to watch, or that backside linebacker can't crash down because you have to watch Anthony Richardson. So if you're talking just the numbers game and you're talking run fits, having a mobile quarterback just provides so much more space and ability for running backs in the backfield. We see it with the Philadelphia Eagles the last couple seasons. Their running backs, I think, with Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback, have averaged almost half a yard more yards per carry than any other than the league average, actually. The league average at running back. Miles Sanders is pushing 5 yards a carry every single season there. Now put a guy like Jonathan Taylor with that kind of impact, where he's already averaging 5 yards a carry or 5.2 yards a carry. And you could see a phenomenal season. You could see a return to 2021, maybe even better. I don't want to go that far, but 2021 was that phenomenal season, and you could see something right around the same caliber because you have that quarterback that's going to be taking away pressure from you. We even saw in that 2021 season, there were games where they were only running the ball, they couldn't throw.
Well, that was the thing I was going to say is the problem with the bet with Taylor is that you have a team with a rookie quarterback that isn't projected to win a ton of games, and so you've got to deal with the fact that they could be trailing. Richardson could be throwing it 40 times a game in certain situations, and then Taylor's just not going to get as many carries. And part of that too may be the defense, right? I mean, Gus Bradley's back. Gus Bradley. I remember meeting Gus Bradley 10 years ago at his first year when he was with the Jaguars at the coaches breakfast. That man is a walking human cup of espresso. He's a fantastic human being. He is so energetic. And I just don't know that his defenses have been great the last few years. It weren't really good with the Raiders. And, just the style of defense that he plays, I just have concerns about whether or not Indy will be able to stop anybody with Gus Bradley. And it's so weird to me to see. I mean, it's just weird to see him carry over from one staff to another. He was with 3 coaching staffs, right? I mean, if you count Jeff Saturday, that's weird.
If we count Jeff Saturday, but
I will never forget Jeff Saturday.
Oh, we count him.
We're never forgetting Jeff Saturday. That's but the thing is, you just don't really see that very often where, I guess with the Colts, actually, the last 2 defensive coordinators have been Matt Eberflus was hired by Josh McDaniels, who then bailed on the job, and Eberflus stuck around. And then Gus Bradley, I just do we think this defense has a chance to be good this year?
It's a layered question there, but to kind of start with keeping Gus Bradley. I mean, him and Shane Steichen do go back. They work together with the Chargers. They have had that relationship for a while. So when it came down to interviewing for potential defensive coordinators, I'm sure he looked at some of his guys from the Eagles staff. I'm sure he looked at it around the league a little bit, but Gus Bradley, he did some good things last year. For the first half of last season, the only reason the Colts even won 3 games is because of that Colts defense. That Broncos game, that horrendous Broncos game we all had to watch on Thursday Night Football, I think it was, or Monday Night Football. Just horrendous game. But that defense is the reason they won that game. Now, the Broncos defense on the other end is the reason why it was such an ugly game too. But we even saw the Colts beat the reigning or the eventual Super Bowl champs in the Kansas City Chiefs. They held them to 16 points in that game. And Gus Bradley's defense played fairly well. Now they did struggle down the stretch, and I'm not going to say that they were this great all-time defense last year, but I think you could see enough last season to where you're like, okay, cool. Gus Bradley deserved a chance to stay. You want to keep that continuity with the players that were playing because, they just shifted from the Matt Eberflus cover 2 kind of Tampa 2 type system to this cover 3 single high middle of the field closed. You don't want to switch right back to a middle of the field open. Now I understand your concerns. That's really not the way the NFL is going right now. The NFL is going towards the Fangio quarters and they want to sit back in those quarters. So going to this cover 3 middle of the field close is so 2010s of them, when it comes to defensive style. But I think Gus Bradley deserved a chance to come back again to keep that continuity. Now, when it comes to will this Colts defense be good, they lost a lot at the cornerback position. They lost Isaiah Rodgers Sr. For the whole season. He got suspended for the gambling thing and then obviously was released soon after. Stephon Gilmore got traded to the Cowboys. Those were their 2 best corners last season, without a doubt. And replacing them are Juju Brents, the rookie from Kansas State, and Darius Rush, the rookie from South Carolina, who was a 5th-round pick. Now, I've heard really good things about those guys since they drafted him, but at cornerback, it's really a tough position to start 2 rookies. Kenny Moore is still going to be in the slot, but you're going to have 2 rookies out there on the edge. In a defense where, again, this cover 3 defense, you have to be able to carry vertically. You have to be given a lot of responsibilities. It's going to be tough. And we also don't know the stats of Shaquille Leonard, which we're going to talk about here in a second, I'm sure. But I would say just go ahead and lean into that too, as part of the defense. It was Shaq, because I think I called him. I can't not call him Darius. I cannot believe I can get away with it. But or Jim Irsay said on Pat McAfee's show earlier at some point this offseason, because let's just say earlier this week, I think it was accurate, that he's got a chance, which is extremely concerning. Yeah, it's a weird situation because last year going into the year, he had that surgery to clean up nerve issue in his back, which was leading to issues in his legs and his calves. So he had that major surgery on nerve tissue in his back going into last year, missed a good chunk of games, came back. And when he came back, he got a concussion, broke his nose. So then he missed a couple more games. Crazy. And then when he came back against Washington, he played a quarter, got an interception, and then left the game early because he was feeling more issues with the back and more with the legs. So he had to have another major surgery on the nerves in his back to kind of clean that all up. So the Colts have kind of been very non-committal about him ever since that injury. It's always been oh yeah, he's on pace. He's progressing well. We want to see more from him and stuff like that. And I don't know, maybe it's just my pessimistic side of being a person who's worked in football for half a decade at this point, like, I don't like hearing that. It really scares me hearing that kind of stuff whenever teams are non-committal about this stuff. We heard it with Andrew Luck and his calf issue before he retired in 2019. Yeah. And I'm not saying that this is heading towards retirement, but I think it's heading to a point where me as a media member and people that I talk to as media members and people who have to count this, talk about this football team, we just really can't expect anything from him at this point. Like it's hard to really count on that. Now they do have 2 good linebackers behind him, so it's not the world is over, but you can't replace the impact that his turnovers create. He creates so many turnovers. Every year that he's been a starter for the Colts have been top 10 in turnovers forced in the entire league. Last year, they dropped to 19th in the NFL in turnovers forced. Now, again, the defense switched around, but you can obviously see that tangible proof that Shaquille Leonard, now you guys got me saying Darius Leonard. I was so good about it for years, but yeah, you could see the impact
together.
Yeah, right. But the impact that he brings, you could just see that on the football field. So yeah, it's hard, man. It's crazy to lose a 4-time All-Pro and not know his status going forward after you just gave him the biggest contract ever at the position, and still having this question if he's going to play again. Like, I'm not saying that his career is on the line or it could be over or anything like that, but I'm just saying, I don't know, man. I can't commit one way. I can't be confident that he's coming back. I can't be confident that he's not coming back because everything's kind of just been like, oh yeah, he's on pace. We're expecting him to be back one day. Basically, it's like, that's a big impact player right there.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. All right. Well, that's going to do our time today. Thank you so much to Zack Hicks from Locked On Colts. Stay tuned for more from our All 32 series with daily drops in your podcast feed and on YouTube. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. We will see you next time. Thank you again, Zack. Have a great day.
Thanks, Zack.
Thank you.